I gotta say, I was very surprised to see the news that Khris Middleton is back with the Washington Wizards via sign and trade. Based on the details of this move, it seems like the Wizards really love the idea of his presence being back in the building.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
This is AJ Dybantsa, and you're listening to the Locked On Wizards podcast.
You're locked on to the Washington Wizards. My name is Ben Strober, and covering the Washington Wizards alongside me, as always, is Abdullah IUB. We got a lot to get into on today's show. We had a very surprising sign and trade come through. Khris Middleton is back with the Washington Wizards. Get into everything that means for next season, the details of it all. Could there be another move corresponding at some point soon? D'Angelo Russell's also gone. We'll tackle all of that today in this episode of Locked On Wizards. AB, how shocked were you to see that Khris Middleton was returning to the Washington Wizards via sign and trade?
When you texted me, I was playing pickleball, Ben, so I saw your text, and I was like, as always, love me some pickleball. I saw that text, and I'm like, what? And a couple people texted me, is this the new Marvin Bagley bit, Ben?
I think it could be, and it's part
I
of
wonder
the reason.
I wonder if they negotiated bringing back Bagley, too.
I kind of wonder if we'll ever get any information on that. I want to get the details out of the way of this deal. So it's a sign and trade that involves 6 different teams, which is pretty ridiculous. 3 years, $17.6 million contract is the new deal for Khris Middleton as he returns to the Wizards as a 35-year-old veteran on the wing. So only 1 year of this is fully guaranteed. The second year will be partially guaranteed, while the third season is non-guaranteed. And this reporting is via Josh Robbins and David Aldridge of The Athletic that give us some more of the details here. But part of this move as well, AB, D'Angelo Russell is traded to the Memphis Grizzlies, part of a second-round pick as well, and a second-round pick swap. So those were the things that Washington had to give up to get off D'Angelo Russell's contract. But another thing that's a layer to this thing is the salary that comes in with Khris Middleton, part of this deal, coupled with DeAndre Ayton's $8 million salary that we saw in the trade from Friday. That officially completes the trade exception that we were talking about all last week, around $13.4 million. Bobby Marks did a really nice job breaking all of this down. But I want to get into my direct thoughts. I was tough on Khris Middleton, I think, at times last year because he was playing more in a role that didn't make a lot of sense for him at the time just because of who he was at this point in his career. He still's got a lot to his game offensively. He can still hoop for sure. He's got that post-up, back-to-the-basket game. He can pass pretty well still for somebody at his age. But you saw him starting a lot of games and playing some significant minutes late. And I think for Wizards fans, it was frustrating at times to see him out there when we were saying, hey, like, we're doing this rebuild thing. Let's see our young guys play. But now if he is coming back here, part of this ascension for this Washington Wizards team, where next year you truly want to be competitive and everybody on the roster needs to compete and earn their spot, this is a serviceable player, one that when he is on the floor, I think can give you some very productive minutes. And everybody's going to have to compete with this guy because he can still play. Nobody is going to be handed these minutes anymore going forward. And also with the details of the 2 seconds going out to move off of D'Lo and bring him in, it sounds like they were just very interested in having him back in the building because there were some pretty good responses of what his impact was like on the locker room over the course of the 48 games he was here for the basically a full year he was here from one trade deadline to the next.
Yeah, it was frustrating last year seeing CJ McCollum and Khris Middleton take a lot of those shots, Ben. But now, 36, 35 years old? I'm happy. I think the fact that it's year 2, year 3, it's not a lot of guaranteed money. And on top of that, you get rid of D'Angelo Russell. I know a lot of Wizards fans are happy about that. Never reported. Didn't seem like that was going to happen when the trade went down for Anthony Davis when he was included with it. Now you got rid of Jaden Hardy. You got rid of D'Angelo Russell. And the front court, I'm assuming Middleton's going to be slotted into that backup 4, right, Ben? Or do you see him more of a 3?
I think he could really play wherever. He kind of fits in that hybrid 3-4 role. The one thing about this, AB, is they have so many players at this position at this point that are kind of in the middle between this 3-4 hybrid. Will Riley, Bilal Coulibaly, Keyshawn George, Justin Champagnie, Cam Whitmore. Those are like Justin Champagnie and Whitmore are the two I really view as like these 3-4 hybrid players especially. But based on what we see, some of the intel in this article here from Josh Robbins and from David Aldridge was what the role essentially is going to be, and this is per team sources as well, so this is information they're getting directly from the team, I believe, here in this article. The Wizards did not bring Middleton back for him to take minutes away from any of their young group of wings, including the first overall pick in the draft, AJ Dybantsa. The Wizards have high hopes not only for Dybantsa, but for Keyshawn George, Will Riley, and Bilal Coulibaly to play significant roles for them going forward. So with that being the understanding of this entire thing here, Middleton, I think, is a very, very good veteran to have in the building. Because if you're going to be about business every single day and truly competing, one, for the young guys that need to be in a legitimate competitive situation just to get their minutes on the floor, this is the guy you want in the building to make everybody work for it. And essentially they have to compete with him because he still can play. At the end of the day, I had a tweet that I wanted to pull up with some of his different offensive numbers that we had over the course of the season here in DC last year, but he was actually a net positive player when he was on the floor at times. If you think back to that stretch where the Wizards won 7 of 12 games, where him and McCollum were just going crazy every single night, that was part of the time where everyone was starting to get worried that the Wizards were going to win too much and lose their pick. And that's where the role kind of cooled down a little bit for Middleton. He started getting less and less minutes before he was eventually traded in the Anthony Davis trade. And then McCollum, they got out of here super quick in the Trae Young trade. And then Trae Young only plays 5 games. So Middleton was helpful. He did help him win some games last year. He did make him lose a couple at the beginning of the year. I think the Philadelphia game, him and McCollum had a really tough fourth quarter and overtime, but it's all good. The Wizards weren't trying to win games last year, so we can forgive any game that was lost partially because of something Middleton did. I really like the addition. I think more that I think about it now, AB, I like having Middleton around to be what I think is one of the perfect veterans for AJ Dybantsa.
And think about it, less than a week ago, Ben, we were concerned about the front court depth. Now this team traded for DeAndre Ayton. He will be that backup center. You have Khris Middleton, who can be slotted into that backup four, still solid at his age. Do you think he's going to play that OG, Udonis Haslem, Anthony Gill type role in this team? I mean, will there be a slot for Anthony Gill in this roster?
So there's one more available slot right now. They have 14 to 15 standard contract spots filled. Will they bring back Anthony Gill is the question. I've seen mixed results of whether or not people want Anthony Gill to come back. I'm fine bringing him back because I think based on what you have now, there's legitimately depth all around on this roster at this point, except for maybe backup point guard is the one area you could say. I don't know if they have legitimate depth at that position right now. It just kind of depends on who you think slots in at that role. That if they need to bring back Anthony Gill because he is the presence that everybody on the team needs there day in, day out, I'm fine with that. I would be open to that. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's only right if he's here when this team is competitive, Ben. I mean, he was here during some dark times. I think you have to give him a role somewhat. And if it's that mentor, I wouldn't mind him. Middleton, AD is not too old, but he's still going to be that mentor for Sarr and a lot of the young guys in the front court. I like this trade, Ben. I don't think as a Wizards fan you can be upset when you think about the contract and you flipped this guy not too long ago for Anthony Davis. Going back to asset management, second-round picks matter, Ben. I mean, look at the second-round picks they've used this front office in previous trades so far in this tenure. Good.
Right.
I don't think you can hate it, man. I like this.
They were able to use second-round picks to get off a malcontent that came here when you acquired Anthony Davis. You got rid of a guy in D'Angelo Russell that had no interest in being here, and now you bring back Khris Middleton, who clearly is interested in being in D.C. and being part of what this franchise ascension will be. So at the end of the day, if you tell me that you can choose between, one, a player that you could actually rely on for a little bit of depth here in Middleton and that wants to be here, or a guy in D'Angelo Russell that does not want to be here, I'm going to take Middleton 10 out of 10 times. I think that's what most people would agree upon here.
Are we ruling out Russell Westbrook reunion?
There's one more spot. I feel like it doesn't seem as likely at this point. I wonder if that last spot truly is going to go to Gill. But we'll kind of dive into all the other stuff. I do wonder if any of these other wings they have on this team are consolidated or traded at some point.
Cam Whitmore, I saw that's a possibility because you have a lot of wings, man. You have to get rid of one, I'm assuming, right?
I don't know if you necessarily have to get rid of anybody at this point, but you run into the thing saying, where are they going to fit in right now? Could you just have legitimate depth all around the board where if one of these younger wings that you have on the team is not seeing rotational minutes because you have this many guys that are better and can actually win you and provide you meaningful minutes on the floor, then I think you're in a fine position. Because legitimately, think about the way this roster has completely changed over the last season or so. Now that you're going to bring forward a lineup that has two all-star veterans, including an all-time great player in Anthony Davis when he's on the floor, Trae Young and Anthony Davis, the two veterans leading the way behind, a young nucleus of players by some combination of AJ Dybantsa, number 1 overall pick, Keyshawn George, Alex Sarr. Is it going to be Trey Johnson or Bilal Coulibaly? There's a lot of different possibilities you have of where they go lineup-wise, but this organization has completely flipped the terms of how competitive they can be based on their lineups because they legitimately have a lot of talent top to bottom right now. It's just a matter of can they all put it together and start to win you some games.
On paper, this roster looks really good. It's just about going out there and executing. Brian Keefe, the light's on you. You have to be able, if you want to prove that you can be that coach here long term, you have the pieces. You're not tanking anymore. You have vets in Khris Middleton, Trae Young, maybe you consider a young vet, Davis. This team's going to be exciting to watch, Ben. And after getting A and Middleton, I'm not worried about the front court at all.
Yeah, it feels a lot better to feel comfortable depth-wise of what you have in the front court because we were starting to be like, oh my God, are we going to get to dire straits here if they don't do something soon? And it's interesting that now the money that they're spending this offseason, they're all doing via the trade market as opposed to just spending it through the mid-level exception. I'd have to double-check and see. You know how NBA salary cap money and all that stuff is. It's very confusing and hard to follow at times. Oh, yeah. And then there's the trade exception, which I guess this is now a part of, according to Bobby Marks. But as we get more details about this entire thing, we'll definitely provide that. I want to take a quick break. I want to get into what this means for AJ Dybantsa, just how good of a veteran presence is Khris Middleton. What else does he bring to the table as well? That is next here on Locked On Wizards. We talk about mental health more openly now, but asking for help can still feel really hard. But BetterHelp's latest research confirms it. BetterHelp's 2026 State of Stigma report surveyed 2,000 Americans and revealed that 85% of Americans believe getting support is wise, yet 74% say society discourages people from doing so. The disconnect is interesting. Most people believe it's a good thing to get help, but actually taking the step is too difficult to do. So it's worth asking what makes the conversation feel more normal and more encouraged. That's what BetterHelp is for, because it's the world's largest online therapy platform with over 30,000 therapists globally and has helped more than 6 million people connect with support. Through a short questionnaire, BetterHelp does the initial match so people can focus on their therapy goals, and if the match isn't right, users can switch to a different therapist from tailored recommendations. I think most people would encourage someone else to talk to a therapist, but it's harder when it's yourself in the situation. Sometimes hearing somebody else normalize getting support is enough to make the first step to make everything feel a lot more approachable. Don't let stigma stand in the way of support. Start therapy with BetterHelp. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. I just wanted to get a couple of these quick numbers offensively out of the way here from Khris Middleton last season and what his impact actually was on the floor. And shout out to Wanzo TV, who has his own YouTube channel, but he's very prominent in the Wizards Twitter community that got this information out. So shout out to Wanzo. 3.3 potential assists per minute on ball, the 96th percentile last season. Shot 36% from three, not too bad on the wing. And 1.10 points per possession as a spot-up man. So if he's a guy that's going to post up, have his back to the basket, that's just an area of his game that's been his bread and butter over the course of his long time, over decade-long career, multiple All-Star appearances when he was in Milwaukee for 12 seasons. That's just something that's not going to leave his game. And I think he can still provide that in a limited capacity for the Wizards going forward. What do you think this means for AJ Dybantsa to have this type of veteran now at the same position that maybe can teach him the tricks of the trade, AB?
I mean, you need a veteran like that when you're coming into the league, especially since you are the first overall pick. And Khris Middleton at his peak was a second option on a championship team in the Milwaukee Bucks. Nice mid-range shot shooter from the outside. I love it. You need mentors for your young guys. And Dybantsa, as special as he will be his rookie year, there's going to be times where he needs to learn, and you have a guy like Khris Middleton on his shoulder telling him stuff during games, after games, pre-games. It's good to have. And I feel like in Washington right now, it's not just Middleton, it's Davis, Trae Young. I mean, there's just so many like high IQ players that you put together when I'm talking about Young and his playmaking. Davis, championship pedigree, top 75 player. Middleton's won a championship. It's a nice mix right now, and you didn't have to give up much. You're not paying that much. I like it. It's crazy, Ben. Since the beginning of 2026, the Wizards have added, or in this case, re-added, Trae Young, Anthony Davis, DeAndre Ayton, and Khris Middleton. If you told us this before the year started, you would be like, how is that even possible?
I don't think we would have thought any of this was possible because at that point, at the start of the new year, Khris Middleton, I think, actually had a pretty big impact on a game on New Year's Eve where the Wizards stole one in Milwaukee. Remember that one, AB?
Oh, yeah. He used to ball out against Milwaukee. I remember
he
that.
He did. He always played really well against his former team, and the Wizards end up winning 3 of 4 matchups against Milwaukee last year. Yeah, if you would have told us the information that in just a few days from that time that Trae Young would be on the Wizards, and then a month later Anthony Davis would be on the Wizards, and Middleton, who we thought all would get traded at the deadline at some point, would actually be back on the Wizards with DeAndre Ayton. It goes to show you how the NBA offseason is just crazy, man. This sport is a gift it keeps on giving in terms of how entertaining an offseason can be, but it shows how the philosophy and the thinking has really changed over the last 6 months or so for the Wizards in terms of how they are trying to compete and how they are trying to take the next step forward as an organization. Because if you're going to be serious day in, day out about your process and the habits that you're building every single day after 3 years of losing a ton of basketball games, you need the right people in the building, to say the least. You have to have the right group of guys, especially the right group of veterans, to make everything make sense. And necessarily, Young and Davis are the veterans you're looking for because of the talent that they still have right now. Because Young, at 27 years old, legitimately still think he can be an all-star level player. That's my personal belief on what Trae Young is. I think he's going to be a complete revelation for what they are offensively because of his ability to break down a defense and play make. Davis, he's still good when he's healthy. But if you're looking for a veteran off the bench that really provides you, one, meaningful minutes, but locker room presence, Middleton is a great guy to have in the building. And this is just a little bit more stuff here, courtesy of the reporting from The Athletic, is that Middleton was hugely popular in the Wizards locker room during his stint when he was brought over in the initial deal to move on from Kyle Kuzma. Him and CJ McCollum were both very good influences in the locker room, with young guys absorbing the professionalism that Middleton went about with his work every night. And even when he wasn't playing much, they're hoping to recreate that again in a key season for the franchise. But I always viewed this move, as soon as it happened and I saw the details of it, this is we really want this guy in the building because we truly think he positively impacts our young group of players right now. That's what they believe about Khris Middleton, and I can see the vision of why that would be the case. I think there's not really a downside to having Khris Middleton on your team. He's not going to be a malcontent. The worst case scenario is he's a 35-year-old player and he's not as good as he once was, but you shouldn't be relying on Khris Middleton to be an all-star or anything like that right now.
Yeah, he's not going to take the amount of shots that he took in his first term as a Washington Wizard, Ben. I think we can unanimously agree on that. When it comes to the front court, you have Ayton now, just traded for Middleton. Who do you think will have a bigger role, Tristan Vucevic or Julian Reese?
Ooh, I think Tristan Vucevic right now, just because he's the one that is on the standard deal for the team. Yeah. He got the new 3-year, $10 million contract or $9 million contract, whatever it was, in around February of last season. He showed in spurts offensively that he's got some skill and he's got some craft to his game that I think is unique for a guy at 7 foot. Just think about the way the team has kind of changed their identity around having a ton of size outside of Trae Young. I was doing an article for Wizards Roundtable yesterday about this, AB, in terms of identity. The second shortest player on the team right now, outside of Trae Young, who's around 6'1", maybe at that, Bub Carrington at 6'4.5" is the second shortest player on the team. They have built a squad that is featuring a ton of guys that provide a ton of size and length. I think by my count, based on the active roster yesterday, they had 8 guys that were 6'9" or bigger. according to their ESPN listed heights. That is a big-time squad. You have a
Let's
lot
go.
of reach. You have a lot of size. So if you're truly going to be about positional size all across the board, the Wizards have a lot of that right now on their team.
I like it. Versatility, baby. And that's how you build around a guy in Trae Young who is not the greatest defender in the world, 6'5 plus, man. Position versatility, you got to love it. Rebounding, this team is going to be better at rebounding. I'll tell you that much.
You got to be better rebounding. And that's something that Middleton actually did fairly well. Sarr actually rebounded the ball better with Middleton on the floor. So some other stuff here, just courtesy of Data Baller. You can get all this information so quick, finding out per 75 possessions how Khris Middleton played with some of these guys on the floor. Sarr was 22.6 points per game, or per 75 possessions, excuse me. That was plus 2.6. With Middleton on the floor, his true shooting percentage was up 5.5% when Middleton was on the floor, and his plus-minus goes down to a minus 4.8, so still a minus at that point, but everybody was kind of a minus of the young crowd, but that's 9.2 points better when Middleton was on the floor. And I'm not sure how many minutes you're going to see where it's Middleton directly playing with Sarr, but it goes to show you when you have this like forward type of player on the floor, another big, if so to speak, next to Sarr, that it actually can help him out a pretty good amount. So that's maybe good indication as well of what you'll see with Sarr when he's playing with Davis or Ayton.
Realistically, I know it's a 3-year deal, Ben. I know it's kind of tough to predict, but how long do you see Middleton being here?
I think at least one season at this point. Maybe if they're not in need of his services anymore after this key year upcoming, because part of his deal next year is guaranteed, and then the year after that is completely non-guaranteed in the third year. That's probably a pretty movable contract. First of all, it's cheap. He's only making $5.5 million against the cap this season. So, between him and Ayton, that's $13 million against the cap for Khris Middleton and DeAndre Ayton right now. So that's not bad value whatsoever.
I think a lot of people are just happy that they moved on from D'Lo, Ben. It's kind of like, his tenure was longer than Chris Paul's as a Wizard.
Right. Somebody should just make the graphic for him. It says, like, thank you, D'Lo. Thank you for your services. And
shout out to our boy Henry Brown.
It's funny because maybe I come off as like hatred or hateful toward D'Angelo Russell. I don't really personally have anything against the guy. I don't know him, never talked to him. He never played a game for this team. They weren't interested in him playing here. He wasn't interested in playing here, so it was just kind of that situation.
It was a mutual thing.
It was a mutual thing. And now we're good. Now Khris Middleton's back. I'm definitely cool and rocking with that going forward. All right, let's wrap up the show when we come back. What more does this trade to bring Khris Middleton mean for the Wizards next season? That's next. It's so fun covering this team right now just because you got to expect the unexpected at this point. But seeing Khris Middleton back in the fold and legitimizing what you're trying to do in terms of having a competitive group of guys every single night, and this means your young guys are getting a boost of competitiveness as well, because you really can't be just handing out the minutes anymore. I remember last year Will Dawkins said the minutes will have to be earned, not given, and then Winger kind of reiterated again this summer. He said, all right, no, like actually now. You're going to have to really earn the minutes that you play on the floor. And it's about time that it does become that way, because you've been building this youthful core over the last couple of seasons now. But at the end of the day, not everybody can have the exact role that they want, because when push comes to shove, you got to start winning some basketball games. You got to start competing a little bit. And the Wizards have continued to signal that's what they are trying to do. And that is their primary goal for next year, is to really be a much better basketball team.
That's the thing with a lot of Wizards fans, and I'm included. We haven't had much experience when it comes to building a championship squad that can win for 4 to 5 years. And now when you have vets and Davis and Young, the youth movement, that they're only going to get better, you have veterans, you put all that together, that's the makings of a championship team. Now, I'm not saying this upcoming year we're going to win the championship, although it would be great. It would be awesome. It's not going to happen. You take that jump, you make the plan, a bridge year, essentially, and then the year after is hopefully you make it out the first round and compete. And then if you can't, then you trade some pieces to acquire a guy, maybe like a Jaylen Brown, or when the Cavs did it with Donovan Mitchell. You see my point here, Ben. It's taking those steps, and you've taken the steps. They have done everything right. Everything right is good on paper. It's just going out there this upcoming year, opening night, should be fun.
Taking the steps is so important, and we've talked about it. This team isn't necessarily ready right now to
course
consolidate
not.
anything serious and make the win now type of move. But maybe that will be next summer or the year after that when you really start to see them get serious and make that dramatic push toward being a legitimate contending team at some point. But, I mean, every single move that gets made over the last 5 or 6 months or so has just further signaled that you're trying to get out of this rebuilding phase and start to finally build back up, which if you're listening to this right now and you've been rocking out with us for the last year or so, you've seen just how dramatically this roster has changed and how the thinking of the team has changed over the last year or so. It's legitimately going to be a fun watch to see the Washington Wizards every night because you know they're going out there with the intent of trying to compete and win every single night. That obviously could not have been the case over the last couple of seasons, and you understand why. But now you have your buildable, what you think is a franchise player in AJ Dybantsa on the roster to make everything make sense about this entire thing. So this has got to be a good feeling for everybody that's in this live stream right now. Got over 170. We had 200 people in here at one point, and everyone that's listening to this after the fact. I would imagine that the majority of Wizards fans are starting to feel a little bit more positively about being a fan of the team just because you're finally getting out of what were the darkest years, but the necessary dark years.
Yeah. Legitimately, Ben, I think this is the funnest team in the NBA. When you look at the I don't want to say narratives, but when you look at the players that you have right now, you have Trae Young trying to prove himself. AD, him wanting to be here, him not wanting to be here, we just don't know. But when he's out there and healthy, 20-12, walking 20-12. AJ Dybantsa, first overall pick. There's a lot of good fun players in the squad. Alex Sarr, year 3. Keyshawn George putting on muscle. As a Wizards fan, you have to be optimistic. And hopefully this upcoming year, we'll see a lot more people in Capital One Arena. You come to more games. It's going to be exciting. We have Jazz fans watching us now, Ben. They're thinking that we're coping with Dybantsa being the pick over Peterson.
I love the Jazz fans. I'm happy for him because they're on the page commenting everything about Darren Peterson because they're genuinely happy that they got a really good player in Darren Peterson. So I'm happy for them, but I hope our guy is better. And hopefully we find out on Thursday. Maybe we'll get our first look.
And they can both be great. That's fine.
They can both be great. But obviously we hope and we believe that our guy will be better. But, it kind of remains to be seen. I can't wait for that Summer League game on Thursday.
Are you kidding me?
I mean, how the Jazz are playing again tonight, I believe.
I was going to say, Ben, this is unfair, man.
Well, is Peterson actually going to play Thursday now? That's what I'm wondering. Is he going to play the fourth game?
Speaking of playing, on ESPN, when they were posting his highlights, they initialed him DNP. I'm like, come on, you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing there, ESPN. But yeah, Peterson has 3 games. AJ hasn't even played one yet. What's up with the scheduling, man?
So I'm looking at the Jazz Twitter right now, and they're in the last game of the Salt Lake City Summer League, and Darren Peterson was not in the starting lineup, so maybe he's not playing in this one, and then he'll be playing against Washington in the Vegas Summer League. I would imagine that's probably the case. Darren Peterson is in street clothes, so people will probably meme that, even though he's obviously just resting in this game. But hopefully that means that he and Ace Bailey are going to play against the Wizards on Thursday. I can't wait for it. 9 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, it'll be exciting. I wanted to ask you, Ben, on the previous pod, I mentioned that we can't really assess who the better player is when it comes to this draft class until they're contract extension eligible. And a lot of Jazz fans thought that I was crazy. But you see my reasoning behind that, right?
I think I understand that because you want a legitimate sample size for 2 organizations that are kind of in a similar spot. They're trying to be on the up and up and get out of the basement of the league. So if one player can dramatically drive the winning of the organization within the 3 or 4 year period before he can start to talk about that contract extension talk, I think that makes sense as using a basis of the argument. I think if one player was worlds better than the other in the first 2 years, then maybe you could say early on, okay, we can tell that this player is a better player. But for a player like Dybantsa, who we know needs to work on his shot a little bit at this point, like the catch and shoot stuff is the number one gripe with, I guess, his game right now offensively, and then some of the defensive off-ball stuff, there's a chance that maybe he's the one that's a little bit slower to hit the peak of what he could be as a player comparative to Peterson, who has the shooting skill down right now. But I think AJ is going to be a really good player from day one, and I think Darren Peterson is going to be a really good player from day one. He already looks like a really good player day one here in the summer league.
Yeah, just root for all the guys. This was a draft class that was hyped for a reason. Man, it's so funny, man. I'm just looking at it right now. The Wizards traded Middleton for AD and Russell, and then they traded Russell for Middleton. Some my league moves right there, baby.
I mean, it's just you're playing GM on 2K, yet we're doing this thing in IRL, I guess. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On Wizards. Had to get a little bit of extra stuff out here with the addition. Khris Middleton is back with the Washington Wizards. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you're listening on the audio, you can reach out to us on our social medias at DMV Sports Zone for Abdullah, our social media at Locked On Wizards on Twitter, wherever you get social media. And then you can hit me up on all my socials as well at Strober Sports. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On Wizards. We thank you for tuning in. That's Abdullah Ayyubi. I'm Ben Strober. We're out of here.